welcome to stream. It's already 11:15 p.m., but we would like to actually continue our conversation about IPOs. This is our third conversation, and I don't think this will be the last conversation. I would love to IPO a company. I'd love to acquire companies, get involved in mergers and acquisitions. I'd love to be a great CEO, and that's why I'm studying beyond what I know. I want to know more than what I know, and the following is really just me sharing what I've learned. You might see DTF, learning like. DTF stands for Design, Technology, and Finance, not what you think it stands for. And I find this picture hilarious. Bilibili is the company that owns TikTok, and you can see the ladies involved with the IPO on the right. They cosplayed, and I think it's amazing, and I'd love to have some cosplay, guys and girls, because I want to IPO really fun companies, really cool companies. I'm running a gaming company, but I want to go beyond game design. I want to go into merchandise. I want to sell products that delight the customer, and just my style, you know? Or maybe even sell other people's products as well as a middleman. So we've discussed a lot about really middlemen. We were discussing about middlemen, and if you want to see the earlier videos, you can go search for them. Right now they're on YouTube. Maybe they'll make their way in other parts of the internet. And the idea we were trying to focus so heavily on was that stock exchanges like NASDAQ are actually middlemen. Like, NASDAQ is a public company. You can buy their shares, and their specialty is making it easy to buy other people's shares, and they charge a commission. And we really looked and investigated what it means to be a middleman, what makes a good middleman, what makes we didn't really talk about what makes a bad middleman. And we want to just wanted to demystify an IPO, to understand that an IPO is simply a private company listing its shares for the first time and making it available for public investors to buy parts of their company. And because they're paying the stock exchanges to list on their exchange, the stock exchange as a middleman wants to, the IPOing company, the issuer, wants to sell as many shares at the highest price possible. So they involve middlemen like stock exchanges to help them sell, because the buyers are already at the stock market. And middlemen like the banks and stock exchanges also like companies IPOing, so it's a mutual benefit, because they already have all the infrastructure and specialty and the distribution channels, and they find it very easy to make massive profits quickly by just providing services they're already good at. And so IPOs can be seen as a sales event and a sales tactic that the IPOing company and the middlemen involved in IPOing them, helping them IPO, such as NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange. These stock exchanges are actually also trying to help them sell as many units as possible. The more successful the IPO, both parties win. The middleman makes more money, NASDAQ makes more money, and the issuing company, Bilibili, also makes more money. And so when we start talking about different types of IPOs, you'll start to understand that the role of middlemen is the main issue. How many middlemen do you involve? What is their involvement? What is their role? What are they being offered? And at the end of the day, if we focus on the outcome, like what is the goal? The goal of an IPO, as we mentioned earlier, the goal of an IPO is to raise as much money as possible, and you do that by sharing as many shares at the highest price possible. And in order to achieve that, IPOing companies present themselves to the world and investors as companies with a long-term vision with a promising future. It's why everyone's cheering. It's because they're trying to sell you something. If someone's trying to sell you something, they should be smiling. They shouldn't be frowning, because if they're frowning when they're selling you something, it's going to turn you off, or maybe make you think twice about whether or not it's a good purchase. So the two main ways to IPO are direct listing and traditional IPO. The direct listing basically says, I want to involve less middlemen. I believe that my company's brand is strong enough that if I list my stock on a stock exchange, so I work only with as few middlemen as possible, the stock exchange being one of them, I can preserve more of my profits. Now, the traditional quote-unquote IPO, which I would not really want to call it that, like I think I'm looking for another name for that. I would actually rename it now that I've studied it as the Underwriters IPO. Like the Underwriters IPO to me might be a better name for traditional, because if you look at the history of IPOs, I don't think they've all followed this structure. So it's not like they've all been following this. It's just it's currently common, but it's not the traditional method of IPO. And the idea behind an Underwriters IPO is you want to involve more middlemen. You want as much help as possible to guarantee that the IPO is a success. And underwriters, and their role is massive in the Underwriters IPO, and the underwriters completely missing in the direct listing IPO. So I would actually call the direct listing also an IPO. I'm going to rethink of things in my own terms that I feel that are more accurate. So the direct listing IPO is when a company says, look, New York Stock Exchange, I want to sell my shares immediately on your platform, and we will work out the SEC filing, and so we will get that approval, but I don't need insurance companies or banks or underwriters to get involved. And if you look at the main reason why someone would want to go for direct listing is because an Underwriters IPO can cost the company 7% of an IPO, a commission on the sales of shares. That's pretty fat, considering that there's going to be taxes, there's going to be the stock exchange and other parties involved, early investors. Like, the whole point of a sale is to make as much money as possible. The whole point of involving middlemen is to get more sales. Now, if you involve middlemen and they're not effective, they can actually charge you a lot of money that would have better just gone straight to you. So IPOing companies weigh that decision very carefully and say, do we feel that we would benefit more involving more middlemen, or would we be better off involving less? Because 7% of your IPO is going to be a huge amount, and it's only worth it if those middlemen are providing the value that is necessary. Another major difference is that underwriter lockups, also known as IPO lockups, come hand in hand with underwriters, because, and we'll keep talking about underwriters, and it's probably going to take at least 2 videos because it's pretty late tonight, but underwriters are insurance companies basically, and the whole point of an underwriter's IPO is that they insure the IPO, and we'll discuss the details of how do they do that, but they basically say, we will work for the IPOing company, we'll help you sell your stock, we're going to charge you a 7% commission, and because we want to manipulate the prices to make them as high as possible, we're going to force you, as the issuing company, to play by our rules. And our rules say you cannot sell your shares for 180 days, because it's critical that we build up investor confidence in this company. And if the shareholders are selling off their shares within 180 days, it's going to communicate to the market that this is a very poor buy, and it's going to cost us a lot of money. And so, in order for us to proceed to insure your company, we're going to need you to sign this contract. This is essentially what the second part means. I think I need to get a drink. Let's see if we can learn something about pouring through this again. Financial advisors rule. So this basically says companies, the issuing company registers on a stock market to sell their shares, outstanding shares, or your total number of shares, without your insurance, your investment bank insuring the stock. No underwriter. Company, in an underwriter's account, the issuing company actually sells the shares to an investment bank, who then resells it to investors. And that's a form of insurance. So now the company knows that they have a buyer. By selling their shares to an investment bank, the investment bank is ensuring or guaranteeing that they at least have a minimum sales price and a minimum sales quantity. And so people who are more conservative or not confident in their brand may benefit a lot from working with underwriters. But right off the bat, if you have a strong brand and you are a world-class famous brand like Google, or you're really confident in your ability to sell your shares, you do not want to involve underwriters. You want to sell directly as a direct listing IPO because you can retain more of the profit. So this is like kind of not accurate. So financial advisors do not plan and participate in investor meetings. It's pretty biased because just because you don't have an underwriter does not mean you don't have financial advisors. You can work with financial advisors whenever you want. You just pay them. And so I think that is wrong. As a direct listing IPO, you probably still will work with financial advisors. You just are not working with them on a commission basis of 7%. And you would definitely want investor meetings, and you definitely want to engage with the public in a meaningful way. You just don't want to pay other people to do what you think you can do. Now, this second part is more accurate. Underwriters plan and participate in investor meetings. Actually, when you involve underwriters in the IPO, you're basically giving control of the IPO to a third party. You're basically saying, help, I don't know how to IPO a company. Underwriters, save me. They'll say, I got you, but it's going to cost you. And now the underwriters will plan every investor meeting. They will control these meetings, which is a big deal because for those people who are new to the IPO, which is basically everyone IPOing a company, most people, like the majority of people IPOing companies, that's the first time. They might want to jump right into working with underwriters, but they might not realize until after they've signed the contract that they've given away a lot more control and a lot more strategic planning and a lot more marketing to the underwriters, because the underwriters are actually basically saying, if you're signing us on board, we're taking control. We are controlling the narrative, and if you don't play things by our way, then you're actually getting in our way. So this is something to be aware of, I think. So company pays flat fee to financial advisor. So this is basically saying if you have financial advisors, you are just straight up, like your financial advisors, you're just straight up paying them for their service. You're not paying them to sell your shares. Here, these underwriters are actually, in my opinion, not good financial advisors. In my opinion, the underwriters are an insurance company that are being a middleman, and they're saying, we will sell your shares and we'll charge you. So they are providing a different type of value than a financial advisor. A financial advisor is looking at this is the issue with your best interest at heart. They're actually a fiduciary responsibility towards you. These underwriters actually seem to have a fiduciary responsibility to themselves. They are their own boss. They're their own company. We're talking about Goldman Sachs. We're talking about Merrill Lynch. We're talking about Wall Street firms. Lehman Brothers, if they even exist. I think Lehman Brothers still exists. Was a company. No longer is a company. May God bless me and my brother's companies so that we do not become a company. I would like to create companies that last more than 100 years, to be really honest with you. I don't think all the companies I create will need to last more than 100 years because sometimes technologies come and go, but it'd be great to create a company that has a lasting legacy and is actually surviving into millennia to the future. The Japanese royal dynasty. Yamamoto dynasty has lasted for like 1,300 years, if I'm not mistaken. It has ruled, it still lasts 1,500. Since 660 BC. What? 660 BC? I thought it was AD. You joking? No, that's not right. It's that long? That's actually really cool. I like family photos like that. We're just gonna gotta remember what it's really all about. It's not really all about the dough. Family is important. And I'm attracted to the concept of dynasty. I find it to be very intelligent and very logical. I'll make some videos about that. But the whole idea behind this is at least 1,500-year-old dynasty. Yamamoto. The whole point. There's only been one imperial dynasty in Japan the entire history of Japan, which is impressive. That's not normal. Oh, they really have a dress code. But there's something about dynasties and companies that last, to me, that it's really cool. The idea is, the whole point of a dynasty is that whatever you worked on in your life, you pass it on to the next generation, and they continue what you work on. And whatever skills you have, if you're able to pass it on to your next generation, they can improve on that, iterate, and they can grow from there. And so a dynasty to me is a family that's actually strategically building on its assets, and building on its skill sets, and building on its connections and social status. So it's connections, skill sets, assets, and allegiances and alliances. It gets really cool. It's this idea that, if we as a family build our strength, the next generation can benefit. And if they build our strength, you can snowball. Now the problem of most families is actually most families become weaker over time. It means you have a family, you don't get along, and they split up and go different ways. You have more kids, they don't get along, they split up. Don't get along, they split up. And so the long-term vision is really lacking in a lot of families. But including my own family, long-term vision was lacking in my family. But we've re-strategized as a family and said, hey, how can we as a dynasty, a Hui dynasty, rethink, are we actually using our skills to the best possible ability to synergize? Are we helping each other's dreams come true? We all love each other, but we don't get along. How can we turn this to our advantage? So to me, for example, as I learn about IPOs, and one of the reasons I'm making these videos isn't just for me, it's not just for people alive now, it's actually for people who are not even born yet, my kids, their kids. I would like to leave something, some kind of legacy that can pass on, and even if this legacy is incorrect thinking, they can use my incorrect thinking as a data point. So if I'm talking about IPOs right now, and it is wrong, they can use that as a learning point, as a springboard. That's my intention. So, how did I get a tangent? So, company pays a flat fee to advisors. I was just talking about I was basically saying how the advisors do not have a fiduciary responsibility. The underwriters have a fiduciary responsibility to themselves. The financial advisors have are supposed to have fiduciary responsibility towards you, and so you want to keep them separate. So you want to have third-party financial advisors that are discussing you and your investment. Like, if as a CEO, I want my financial advisors to advise me at a personal finance level, my financial advisors to advise me at a corporate finance level. And then if I chose to work with underwriters during the IPO, they are advising the IPO. But I would be keeping them separate so that I can use them as checks and balances against each other. Because what if one of them is wrong? So you want to bake in some redundancy. So my personal financial advisor, I would tell them what my underwriter is telling me, and my corporate, and vice versa. And if that doesn't make sense, because the underwriters are smart. Oh, I was saying how people who IPO companies, they're usually new to the game, but the underwriters are not new to the game because they have this tribal knowledge. They've been IPOing companies and they've been underwriting many times, so they have a lot of IPOs under their belt. So in the discussions with them and negotiations, they're going to have a serious advantage. They know what they're doing. They can intimidate you. They can make you feel like you don't know what you're doing, and they can make it seem more complicated and just like leave it to the experts. And that's part of these even sessions is to make sure that I become my own expert. I don't really need to have I don't want to be easily tricked. I don't want people to be able to say, leave this to me. I want to be able to digest the information myself and make the best calls strategically from primary source material. And let's continue this. No new shares are created and no capital is raised. Something tells me this is not right. Like, I have to investigate more, so I'm going to actually make a mark on that, because this doesn't seem right to me. Like, it just doesn't sound right. I'm pretty sure if you do a direct offering, you can make changes to your capital structure. You know why I believe that? Because, and sometimes people making these graphics, they're like right sometimes, but they're not always right. And that is important to understand. That's another reason why when you're looking at the graphics, you don't just rely on one single graphic, and you actually try to go beyond. This doesn't seem right. Like, this is like, I need a question mark color, like a real. So if you IPO a company, you can always issue new shares later. It might piss off your shareholders, but it also might make them happy. So it becomes a negotiation between the shareholders. If you are the only shareholder, you can make new shares whenever you want. So this aspect of no new shares are created is definitely not right, because if you directly list your company, you could choose to issue new shares or not. And companies that have been IPO'd for a long time can issue new shares on their own. Now, no capital is raised also does not sound right either. Like, this is like two-part wrong. What on earth is the point of even doing a direct... What is the point of even doing a direct listing if you're not raising capital? The whole point of a direct list is to sell your stock. So if you're not selling your stock... if you sell your stock, someone's paying for that stock. So capital is raised. Now, the caveat here is, if you do a direct list, potentially no one may buy your stock. And so if no one buys your stock, then no capital is raised. Because in an underwriter's IPO, capital is 100% raised. It's for sure raised. It's the reason why people are willing to pay the 7% fee, is because if you work with these investment banks who act as insurance companies, they guarantee that they will have a buyer for your stock, because they themselves pledge to buy the stock. So they themselves say, we will be the ones who buy the stock if no one else buys the stock, and that's how they do the insurance. So that doesn't seem right. So new shares issued by company and or sold by existing investors, I don't think this does not sound unique to an underwriter's IPO. There's nothing in the rules that say you can only issue new shares if you have underwriters. No. If that was the case, then how come private companies, startups like my own, we can issue shares, we can sell to our existing investors can sell shares. It doesn't require underwriters, it doesn't require SEC, it just requires the shareholders themselves to have consensus. So therefore, this doesn't seem right, it doesn't sit right with me. A company and its shareholders and its board should be able to issue shares and sell those shares, and investors should be able to sell those shares as they see fit. The whole point of an IPO isn't to make it possible to sell shares, it's to make it easier to sell shares. So you're always able to sell shares. It's just that there wasn't exactly a market, that there wasn't really a product market fit. It wasn't like the buyer and the sellers could easily communicate and agree on a fair market value price for the shares. So gap between effectiveness of registration statement and trading stock due to relevant switches. So whoever wrote this is biased towards underwriters IPO. What they're saying is that as soon as you've registered, because you've worked with the underwriters, you get fast-tracked. You speed up the process, and you're allowed to start trading as soon as the registration is effective. Now, for the direct list, they're saying that after you've registered, regulation will slow you down. I think that's true. I think that underwriters have connections, and I do think that they use this as a selling point of why you should work with them, is because they can speed up the process. But if we're really honest, who cares if you speed up the process? IPOs within like 4 months. It's like a 4-month thing. So who cares if it's 4 months or 6 months? Do you really care? Sometimes you do, but in the long run, I don't think you really care. It's not a big deal. The only reason why it's only a little bit, I guess, kind of annoying that it's like, I gotta wait. It's kind of like waiting for anything else, though. So I don't consider that to be a major advantage. Now, the one thing is that when you IPO a company, timing does play a role in the success of the IPO. These stock markets have IPO calendars of the sequence of different companies IPOing. And you definitely don't exactly want to be overshadowed by other companies. And you definitely want to have, you want to IPO during a time when the market is already showing signs of liveliness, where people are happy to invest. And if in other IPOs right before you are doing well, those are good indicators. So sometimes you do want to time the market where you're basically saying, because it may take 4 to 6 months to get your IPO in, when you register to actually get in, you need to do it early. You need to time it a little bit earlier so that you could hit it on that time. Because like if you look at the markets now, a few months ago it was a really good time to IPO, which is why a lot of IPOs started happening. And now it's kind of like dipping a little bit. And so even a few months span, the market can react a little bit negatively. And so working with financial advisors to help you forecast can be helpful. Sometimes financial advisors are very valuable, not even because you don't know your finances. It could be because as a CEO and as an executive, you're looking at so many other issues. Like, I don't have time to look at stock prices every day, for example. I'm looking at so many other interesting stuff and other problems. And so even though I can totally read the markets, I may not know at any given time how well has the market been doing relative for the last 5 days. So it's good to have someone in the know, like a coach. It's good to be financially literate, financially sophisticated, and it's good to have someone who can immediately, like, it's kind of like a meta report. It's like you've been playing Gwent or Shadowverse and you're good at it, but you haven't played it for a while. And so when you want to play that game again, you could do trial and error, or you could immediately ask people who've been playing for a long time and say, hey, I would like some advice, and you're right up to speed. And I see financial advisors the same way. You shouldn't rely on financial advisors to think for you. You should use financial advisors to help you, snap you into the meta, and then you use your own knowledge and your own understanding to help guide you with available information to make the superior investment decisions. And honestly, choosing to work with underwriters or go for the direct list is an investment decision. You're basically saying, do I think it's worth investing 7% of our IPO's proceeds in an extra middleman? Or do we think we can do it without? So weighing the pros and cons becomes a major part of saying, comparing and contrasting the two options and saying, Is there a third option? Is there something that's kind of in the middle? Is there something else that we haven't heard of? And I'm sure there are things we haven't heard of. And so it's good to use these two as the frame of reference, but I'm sure there are other kind of combos out there that can be explored. Stock pricing and trading. So purchases by initial investors made at IPO price set by company. So this is opening price. Actually, the opening price is not set by the company, it's set by the underwriters, which is also wrong. So if you have underwriters involved, they are in charge of the price, which can be a little bit, I'm not sold on the underwriters. I understand why they are valuable, but I'm not sold that they should be the ones who set the price. So if you choose to work with underwriters, one of the things you're paying them so much money for is for them to select the right IPO price. Now, they're going to always choose an IPO price that is A, lower than what your stock is worth, and B, more to their advantage and less to your advantage, which is exactly why I'm like, why would you pay someone to set the price lower than what it should be, and it's in their favor? The reason they would set it to lower is because they are guaranteeing to buy all the shares if it can't sell. So they want the right to choose what that price is. So that means if they think it's worth $40 per share, they're going to price it at like $35 per share because they know they can resell it at $40, and they want to know that they are getting a discount. So they're trying to discount themselves on you. They're trying to say, so they'll be like, in their heads, they'll do the financial analysis and say, okay, it's worth $40. Then they're going to two-time you and tell you it's worth $35 per share, so we're going to price it at $35. And because you've already signed a contract with them, they are ensuring they will guarantee minimum performance of the IPO at $35 per share, and they will buy every single share at $35 per share. And they've already calculated that if that's the worst case scenario where they have to buy all those shares, they're fine because your shares are really worth $40 per share. So if they buy all your shares at $35, they're actually winning, you're losing, and they're going to sell it at $40 at a fat profit. So even when they lose, they win. So does that sound like something that's in your best interest? It does not sound like it's in my best interest at all. It doesn't sound right. So this is the main reason why you look at the key error here is it says set by the company. It's not set by the company. It is set by the underwriters, not the issuer. So stock pricing and trading activity. Prospective purchasers of shares place orders with a broker of choice at whatever price they believe is appropriate. So this is more like free market, and basically on the direct listing, and I'm sure this is not the only pricing methodology. This tells me this is not what you'd call exhaustive. Because if you just think about it, so if underwriters can legally set the price of my shares, can't I legally set the price of my shares? Yeah, duh. This is wrong. So this is only one way a direct list could actually offer their share price. So Google, for example, they did a kind of they involved underwriters kind of. So they had a special deal with underwriters. So they actually Google did a Dutch auction IPO. And it's something between the middle of a direct list and traditional IPO. And one of the main reasons why they did it was they didn't want the underwriters to choose the price. Because for the exact reasons I just said, why would you want someone else who's not going to choose a price that's in your best interest, choose the price? That doesn't make any sense. So Google, its two founders are PhDs, and they're like quite mathematically literate, or PhD candidates. They didn't ever finish their doctorate. But the thing is, they understood that we should explore a different route. Like, that didn't even sound right to them. And their exploration for the Dutch auction is basically, we should make another video about that. Talk about it in detail because it's worth talking about. Is that in the Google IPO, in potential buyers of the shares all place bids, blind bids. So people bid a price and a quantity. They bid how much will they pay, and they bid how much they're willing to buy. And what happens is the buyer the buyers can't see each other's bids, but the seller saw all the bids, and they actually look down. They have to rank. They have to put all the bids in order of price, the most expensive to the least, and then they go down the list and they see the quantity of shares, and they have to actually add up all the most expensive bids, add up the number of orders that would fulfill and buy all the shares being sold, and they would select the lowest price as the price for everyone above that. So if someone bid, if there are three people buying my shares and there's 100 shares, and one person ordered 60 shares at $10, and the second person ordered 40 shares at $5, and the third person ordered 100 shares at $2, what happens is you look at the price rank, $10 and then 10 and then 5. So the person who ordered $10 put in 60, but we have 100 shares to sell. So then you have to go at the quantity. So 60 plus 40 is at 100. So the top first two people already was sufficient to clear and sell all the shares. And then you look at the lowest price, okay, $5. So now the person who bid $10 pays $5 per share for 60, so that's 300. And the second person pays $5 for their 40 shares. So 5 times 40, $200 for their 40 shares. And the third person, because they didn't bid high enough, they are not able to get any shares because they were not within the top 100 quantity shares. So that is the Dutch auction. It's a descending blind auction bid. It's really cool. And that is one way to pull off a pricing model. And this area is called price discovery. The idea is, what price is the best price to give me the best outcome? Sell the most shares at the highest price. And since the pricing is the prerogative and the right of the issuing company, they can choose different pricing methodologies, such as Dutch auction, to determine what would be in their best interest. And underwriters hate Dutch auctions because it means they don't get paid their commission fee. And so when an underwriter is saying, let me do the price discovery, like they're actually branding it this way. The underwriting companies are like, you should pay me a lot of money because pricing is very tricky. And I'm an expert at pricing stuff, so leave it to me. Don't worry about it, and you're gonna have a great IPO. That's what they're trying to smooth talk you into saying, you should pay me so I help you price, right? But the thing is, what's actually happening is the moment you told them they could choose how to price your stock, you've surrendered a right that you had as the issuer and the seller of that stock. And that kind of makes me not like that kind of approach. That's not to eliminate the underwriter's value. Underwriters add a lot of value to different IPOs, but it's really important, I think, to understand the game they're playing. They're being really tricky. And so this method, prospective purchase of shares plus orders with their broker of choice at whatever price they believe appropriate. This doesn't mean you have to sell. So just because the people place the bid at whatever price they're ordering the price at what they believe is fair, it is still within the seller's right to determine, should I sell, or this is not high enough. And therefore the power is retained with the seller and not the underwriter. And so they describe this as a different type of price discovery. One is the market-driven price discovery. What is the market willing to pay for the investor? But and I would put, it is seller controlled. So you could even say this is seller controlled. All right, I shouldn't say seller because underwriters are also selling the shares. So it's issuer controlled. Issuers is the issuing company, and therefore you or me, I'm going to say it's me, for Paideon Technologies, it's literally the company that's selling the shares. So, versus this is actually underwriter controlled. And I should just put UW. So, the alternative has two fancy words. Book building during IPO roadshow. What it really means is the underwriter controls the price. That's all it means. Like, in fact, you could put this right here and you're just like, okay, so they get to choose. But their fancy terminology is basically book building refers to the underwriter figuring out what is the best price for them to price your stock. So they call it marketing, but what they really mean is they go call all potential buyers, they talk to their homies, they talk to their fellow investors, and then they try to figure out what price can I always win at. What price do I always win at? This is what book building is, okay? Our IPO roadshow is marketing again and basically saying, look, presenting the price I always win at. This is the... So once they've done the book building to discover what is the price they'll always win at, they then do the IPO roadshow to tell people what is the IPO price. And that is pretty much their strategy to really be like, aha, gotcha. They gotcha. They got the right price for them. They got the buyers to buy. And they are not going to have to buy your stock. Like the whole point of the underwriter's goal is they want to get the commission, they want to price your stock, and they don't want to actually have to be forced to buy back your stock, because if they priced it correctly, the market will actually gobble up the shares, and they'll walk away with a good payday. So they're always biased. So that's the whole problem with the underwriter is underwriter pricing is biased lower than its true value, versus a issuer pricing is biased higher than its true value. And the thing is, you're trying to find a fair market value, which may or may not be above or below or etc. the true value. So valuation is something that I'm trying to become much better at. I really like valuation as a subject. So we kind of talked about this already. The main advantage here is legally, there's no legal reason why after an IPO the CEO cannot sell his shares or the founders cannot sell their shares. The only reason is because of contractual reason, because underwriters force a contract. So there's a difference between legal, like law, versus contract. So contractual. The whole idea is if you sign a contract, you have to uphold it. And the idea behind locking up the shareholders, this is another underwriter strategy. The underwriters are binding you by contract that you cannot sell your shares for 180 days because it's bad for the price. But if you're in charge of the IPO and you're not bound by the contract, SEC, the U.S. Treasury, U.S. government, they're not going to say, you can't sell your shares. It's yours. You can sell it whenever you want. No lockup. So I don't like this either. This seems wrong. Maybe in the future we should review this stuff. But the key is, I think this style of making videos is actually better for me because this is my review. I don't have much time, so I don't know if I can review it and then go make a video about it. That is a little bit, it takes twice as long versus just straight up reviewing and learning. And now it's better in my opinion. So meetings with institutional investors during IPO roadshow. Look, you can have Look, underwriters, if they can make you have meetings with institutional investors during IPO roadshows, you can have meetings with institutional investors during your own IPO roadshow. You don't need them. Like their involvement does not mean their lack of involvement doesn't mean you can't do that. Their involvement does mean they will do it. But the problem is if you involve them, that you were forced to have it their way. So their roadshow is going to be led by them and planned by them, which can be beneficial because look, some of these companies are prominent brands. Like Goldman Sachs is a huge brand. So I don't doubt they don't provide value, but it's important to know that it's not like you can't hold an event meeting yourself. Like this publicly streamed Investors Day thing is it goes to hand in hand. If you're doing an underwriter IPO, you can also do an Investors Day. You might as well. Like in today's day of streaming technology, if you're going to IPO a company, you want to get as many people excited and interested in your offering. And so streaming your Investor Day, even streaming your roadshow makes sense. And if I was to go for a direct list, as I am currently more inclined to want, I would definitely want to meet with institutional investors during my own IPO roadshow. No need for underwriters. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? People don't buy your shares. Am I going to cry? Like, if people don't buy your shares, it's okay. You can hold the shares yourself. I mean, that's exactly what you were doing before you were a public company. Like, before you were a direct listing, you were already holding your shares. So if you IPO and people don't immediately cash on and buy at the price that you think is a good price, you can hold at that price. And you can just show the world that it doesn't matter if they think the company's not worth much. The company can become worth much over time. And in that case, it's even a blessing that they didn't buy it. Like if I IPO'd a company, direct listed, I would stream my Investor Day. I would then have my IPO roadshow. I would meet with my institutional investors. And if the market did not want to buy my shares, let's say they did not buy my shares, I would hold on to my shares and I would keep investing in my company, keep building my brand, keep pushing forward like I was like the last 10 years before that IPO. And later on, when my shares are actually worth something, I'll look back and say, thank God I did not sell those shares at like $70. I held them on and they're now $700 or even $7,000. Do not be surprised. Ooh. We had an internet come down, but $7,000 share prices are going to happen. So it's not like you need to sell the shares for real. Like if you IPO a company, you don't need to sell the shares because all those years to even IPO a company, it means that your company was doing well enough that it wasn't even selling its shares. Selling the shares is really an extra credit. It's a bonus cash flow. It's like in the cash flow statement, it's a financing. It's a financing item, and it's not something that happens regularly, and you're doing just fine probably without it. Now these last four is kind of strange. So a direct listing, ability to provide public company style financial guidance, limited in ability to provide financial guidance due to liability concerns. So what I'm seeing here is, again, if you're in control of the IPO, you're allowed to tell as much as you want. You're allowed to speak for yourself. You can control the narrative. But if you work with underwriters, if you work with professional underwriters, they will really throw their weight around you. And I actually read some interesting testimonies on this of how people who were finance experts who were in Google during the IPO working with the investment banks, they found that investment banks were actually really annoying to work with. Really annoying in the sense that they were really, really forceful in terms of having things done their way. And this is probably another example of that is The bank wants you, they want you to release information only per their say, only as they want it, because again, they can blame you and say, well, if you didn't do things our way, you breached a contract and therefore you jeopardized your own IPO. Versus on the left-hand side, you're allowed to think for yourself and say, look, what is the financial guidance I should give the public to really, how should I talk about my IPO to get people excited and interested without being dishonest? And to really disclose, you're already disclosing a lot of information to become public, so you want to talk about it in a way that makes sense to you and the investors. But in the underwriter's case, they probably want to really control how it looks like, because they want to craft the narrative around some kind of, they want to give the bare minimum to the public, for sure. And they want to craft the narrative around the bare minimum to give people an idea that they're trying to plant in those people's heads. And now this doesn't sound right either. I feel like this, it's still good though to have a document like this that tells us, gives us something to really think and reference about. Because no information sharing with research analysts, how does that even make any sense? How does it even make any sense? Because in all honesty, when you're becoming a public company, you file your S1, you file your 10K, you're literally sharing information, your balance sheet, your cash flow statement, your income statement. You're sharing so much of your information with basically the entire world. And you're telling me you're not sharing information with a research analyst? It doesn't make any sense. Because a research analyst will definitely have access to the information. You'd be sharing it unwittingly with a research analyst on accident, because the moment you went public, you're actually sharing your information. So that doesn't make sense. Now this part, research analysts assist with investor education. I mean, why can't you do that in the direct listing? Again, if you're allowed to control the narrative and you're allowed to discuss, and you're already making your information public, of course research analysts would be there commenting in the news. They can be invited on, or they can do it of their own free will, because research analysts are trying to make money on their own. So when they know about an IPO, trust me, research analysts are literally looking at your financial information, and if they think that they can help make money by selling more shares, they would definitely want to get involved. So I don't see how that last line makes any sense to me. All right, let's look at this graphic that is along the same vein. So, direct listing, no bank involvement. Basically, no underwriter. IPO, underwriter. No lockup of shares, direct listing. I'm sure you could have a lockup if you wanted to, by the way. These lockup things are things that can be added in. For example, if I did not have an underwriter and I felt like locking up the shares because I want to lock it up for myself, because honestly, it's to the advantage, the lockup is to the advantage of long-term investors. So if I was the CEO of a company, I might actually force a lockup of my own shares and my own team members, because I think it's just good for my IPO. So it's not like you can't lock it up if you're not doing the underwriter's IPO. So I would, again, with the direct list having no IPO price, I feel like that's wrong too. Like, from my understanding, like, if an underwriter can set the price, actually the actual company can say, I want to set the IPO price at this. Now, is that the best practice? Maybe not, but they definitely can set that's in their own power. No new shares issued. We talked about that. No funds raised by company. Okay, now someone is copying and pasting someone else's stuff. The lower cost. So there is true about lower cost. So we're going to look at that right now, because that topic is interesting. Can a company... They can, as far as I know. Interesting. Yeah. I am looking forward to really practicing some of this stuff. For real, so we were right to say that, yeah, a public company can definitely issue shares at any time they want, and therefore they can raise funds anytime they want. So if I direct list IPO my company, and let's just say I don't feel like issuing shares on that direct list, I can literally decide to issue shares the next day. I can literally say I want to, and I have to go through my board, I have to go through my shareholders. But if I am the board, and if I am the only shareholder, which is possible, that's not a very hard thing to do at all. And so that really concludes our deep dive into this first issue, but we've got a lot of interesting notes on really like detailed on how this actually works. Like really breaking down the steps, and I'm excited to continue to review it and really master it. And I think the reason most of us are so intimidated and scared about the IPO process is because people talk about it in a way that is actually unfaithful to what an IPO actually is. So people keep on thinking in their imagination, in their mind, that an IPO is something impossible, something grand, a sign of success, a super complicated process that's not easily understood. I found all of that to be complete bullshit, which I think is wonderful. I think it's wonderful. And we're gonna go take a snack and then go get ready to do something else. But we would like to pray. God, thank you for the ability to see errors and make corrections on people's graphics. But thank you, God, for the people who made those graphics in the first place, because it's nice to be able to see something and visualize and use that as a springboard. God, you know that it wasn't long ago when I did not know anything about finances. So not long ago when I didn't even have any interest in the business world. It wasn't long ago when I was mathematically incompetent. And I pray that you strengthen me financially, technologically, in terms of design, technology, and finance, and to really bring to mass market a lot of interesting products and a lot of interesting services to really compete at the highest level of world-class business. But at the same time, not forget the individual customer, to really have, not just worry about quantity of customer serve, but also about the quality of customer care and customer success and customer service. And also about the teams and employees that are involved in my companies, that those teams are fun teams to be a part of, and able to give people a wonderful lifestyle option, that people would be excited to work with me, to work for me, to work around me, to be a team, to even be, you could even say, a big family. I know that the CEO of Netflix, Reed Hastings, really stressed that a family should be like a family, and a team should be like a company should be like a competitive team. Like, he thinks that running Netflix, it should be ran as if it was a world-class baseball team, that if someone's not performing, immediately gone. And it makes a lot of sense. But according to the Bible, all human beings are actually family members. We're all one family. the poorest and the richest, we have common ancestors. And I know it's hard to see, but genetically it's been verified. We have a mitochondrial Eve. We have a common ancestor. Every human being is actually a family member. And we might think that sounds nice, it's mythical, but even from a cultural standpoint, it's really obvious all Chinese people are descended and related to the same people. Yet we treat each other so badly. We talk shit about each other. We make fun of each other. Scam each other. And it's not hard to see that the Chinese population is so big, it's one big family, very closely related to each other, but there's very little love. There's very little unity. There's very little courtesy. I mean, people look at other Chinese who are not doing as well as them and they just kind of other them. They basically say, those people are screwed. I don't want anything to deal with them. Bad luck's contagious. Go away from me. That kind of mentality. And I don't think I'm much better than most people on this planet. I'm probably the same or worse. And I want to change. I want to transform. I want to show the people a completely different way of being human. I want to be human the way you designed us to be. To see the humanity as a family. And I believe, even though I agree on some level with Reed Hastings and see of Netflix, I think it doesn't come from the place of faith that humans are one family to begin with. Because if human beings are one family to begin with, that means all the customers, all the employees, all my stakeholders, all my investors, all my shareholders, all my board members, I may not know their names. I may not know their story. But by faith, I know that we are all one family. And it may be difficult to treat each other as well as we wish we did because of our limitations, our limited love, our limited interest, our biases to be more caring towards our kin. But I would like you to restore in me and my family the right attitude towards being human, the right attitude towards loving your neighbor as yourself. You said love your neighbor as yourself because you recognize that we are family by faith. You said love your enemies because we are family by faith. That means I heard stories. There's 2 girls who murdered, under 16, who murdered their own best friend and with knives. And you said love your enemies. That means those people by faith are my family members. You said love your enemies. That means the terrorists who blew up 9/11, those people by faith are my family members. And the thieves, the murderers, the drug dealers, the pimps, and the prostitutes, you loved them when you were on this earth. And it was because they were your family. You chose to become a human. In the moment, God, you chose to become a human in the person of Jesus Christ. It means that you wanted to be a part of our family. You saw that our family's broken, that our family's pretty effed up. I mean, even now I can remember the face of the murderer. There was a murderer who was lots of tattoos on his face, and the YouTube algorithm sent me to him, and man, he looked like a cold, hard killer. And he was even killing people. It had nothing to do with the robbery. It had nothing to do with the race. It was something else. But his face was full of scars, and it doesn't take a genius to know that he grew up through some kind of something messed up. And I know, God, that the world has already condemned him to death. That, honestly, if you ask me and like anybody else, do we want more people like him? Most people would say No, we need to eliminate people like him. But you're calling us higher. You remind us that at the crucifixion, you had murderers to your right and your left, and that you had mercy on one of them. And you said today they would be with you in heaven. And it makes me kind of like take a few steps back. I mean, look, I heard the testimonies of mothers of the victims, and it's terrifying, really. It's terrible. No one wants their loved ones murdered, and I want to pray protection from such evil on my own family, not just my immediate family, my human race family. But we don't know what the guy went through. And is it true? Is it really possible that if we switched places that I would have made the similar decisions? I don't know. But I pray that you touch hearts of people whose hearts are so hardened like rock, so that you move them. Because mankind, when we don't see each other's family, we immediately start seeing something else. When we don't see the truth, we start seeing and preferring the lies. We'd rather say we're not family members so that I don't have to care about them. I'm not my brother's keeper. That it's natural and normal to be selfish. It's in my own best interest to only care about myself and my own tribe. I pray that you move this generation. There are already so many amazing people. I've come into contact with so many of them both in real life and online. And some people online I've met in real life. And I pray that you turn hearts to what is good, to what is true, what is lovely. In Philippians 4:8 you said, think about what is excellent, what is praiseworthy, what is lovely, what is noble, what is right. Take us away from judgmental thinking. Take us away from inaccurate thinking. Take us away from preconceived notions. Take us away from vain desire. Help us live meaningful lives. And help us live well in this life. To live, to love, to die in a way that honors you. So that when we see your face on the other side, we can be proud of being winners in this life and winners in the next. Thank you so much for this music, for the technology to be able to record, to be able to share my thoughts, and help fine-tune the quality of my thinking. Help me if I made mistakes in my confidence or my arrogance in different areas with regards to valuation or IPOs or what's the best decision. Enlighten me. Help me see the correct paths. Help me see the better way. Share with me wisdom. I'm open to receive. I pray all these things in Jesus' name. In the Lord Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. We're going to get ready to sleep. I absolutely love beauty, and I think that one of the challenging things about our lives is that we find many things beautiful, but we're afraid of them, or we feel judged by them for loving them. Like, for example, this picture, I think she's got a great body, and we should ask ourselves, why can a person find someone attractive, but it is something to be ashamed of? Why do people have crushes or believe they're interested in someone romantically, but they want to run away? I want to challenge myself to be a consistent person. I want to accept that there is nothing weird or wrong with desiring beauty, looking for God, wanting to be successful in terms of an IPO, loving playing video games. Like, I think we live in such a cool world, and that a lot of people are feeling the pressure to hide part of themselves. That means they may love video games and they like finances and they want an IPO company to be successful. They might like beautiful women and may like learning about God. But in those different worlds they seem like different worlds sometimes. Like if you go to church or something, you can't talk about beautiful women. That's like wrong, huh? If you read the Bible, you're somehow not allowed to talk about getting rich, or that makes you a fake, a prosperity gospel person. And then if you somehow appreciate beauty in a worldly sense, you're a lustful person. At the same time, it's weird to me that people have a preconceived notion about professionalism and business. They might think in the business world you gotta dress a certain way. So kind of like, let's say she is naturally looks like this. You're not allowed to wear that because you're distracting. You're causing too sexy. Like, too sexy is like actually a word people use. Like, that's too sexy. And I understand in terms of making some people feel more comfortable why that would make sense. But I think we're starting to live in a world where it's like, oh, what if she wanted to wear that to church? Somehow she's going to get judged. She's going to get judged. Yet if someone who is completely flat-chested, who wore the exact same thing, wore that, they're not judged. So what are we judging? Are we really that body-positive society that we want to be? Is it really a crime to show cleavage, for example? Is it really a crime to show your belly button? I mean, in some countries it is. Like, there's actually a crime to show your belly button. But I think, like, one of the things that I've kind of like realized about why so many women like taking these kind of photos and sharing them with the internet, in my opinion, is that they actually like sharing it. They actually like making people happy. Like, there is a connection there. Like, put it this way. Guy sees beautiful girl equals happy feelings. That's easy, right? So then girl makes guy get happy feelings equals happy girl. Like, that's like a real thing. Now, there are other motives there, but the reality to me is, like, why do we like our comic book characters to be so busty? Why do we like our movie characters to see in a certain way? It's just like we have an aesthetic, and aesthetics seem to be a major cultural hurdle for people, because what some people find as beautiful is seen as inappropriate by other people. And I've decided I don't want to live by imaginary rules that are not real. Like, I will be a law-abiding citizen. I want to follow God. But following rules that are illogical, irrational, like two on one hand, like to literally on one hand, imagine you yourself think something is beautiful. Like it's a yes or no question. Is she beautiful or is she not? If she is, why be afraid? Why run? Why be ashamed? Why be embarrassed? We're going to get judged in this world left, right, and center. Like at the bare minimum, I belong to a demographic that honestly can't win from a social cultural perspective. Like there's no world where the world sees me as I know. The world that I live in. It won't see me and be like, that guy's amazing in every regard. It's impossible. Like, someone's gonna say something's wrong with me. It doesn't matter how good I am or how perfect I am or whether or not I've achieved my goals. In fact, the more successful I feel like I am going to be and I have become in certain areas, actually is triggering negatively to different demographics of people. So at the end of the day, I decided, look, Jesus loved the prostitute. Jesus loved the beggar. Jesus had friends who were rich enough to put 100 pounds of myrrh on his dead body. So Jesus had friends who were poor. He had friends who spoke different languages than him. He had friends who were different religious backgrounds than him. He just loved and talked to people. He literally walked through walls, walked on water, flies in the sky. Like, okay, now you see, whoa, Jesus is like Superman, dude. Like, for real, like, it gives you a perspective. It's like, wait, we killed him? It makes me realize when I look at the rules that our world runs by, it's judgmentalness, it's stupidity, it's inconsistencies, it's suboptimal layers. It makes me really look at Jesus and be like, I want to follow that guy. Like, you look at the world and then you look at Jesus. You look at God and you look at American society, you look at Chinese society. I mean, Chinese society really cares about only one thing: how much money do you make? American society at the moment is very, very lost. Like, I don't know if the American society value system is even describable with a single set of rules, because now it feels like the American society does not know what is right and does not know what is wrong. And the reason it does not know what is right and wrong is because if you took like a random sampling of 50 people in America and another 100 people in America, like what people think is right and wrong is like seriously could be polar opposites. So like if you ask Chinese people what is right and wrong, they will basically, or what is good and what is bad. If right and wrong is too metaphysical, what is good and what is bad, Chinese people will let you know very quickly. Education very good, money very good, job very good, honor parents very good, and after that, even those values lead a lot of people to have a very empty experience actually, and to live lies, massive lies. But in America, it's like you actually have people in America who think that if they killed racist people, that would be amazing. Then you have other people who think that we should. It's like people have such divergent views on what is good and what is bad. Some people think that we should increase the prosperity of the country by encouraging creative financial trading, for example, short selling. And then other people are thinking we should limit what people can do, that we should lock them down. You can't short sell. Like it just, maybe I'm a little scattered here, but it just feels to me that I love America and I love American people, all kinds, because I love this place. But America is forgetting. It's really hard to know what America stands for anymore. Like, standing for free speech. Like, a number of people think they're standing for free speech, but they're trying to eliminate other people's free speech simultaneously. And so I think I'm kind of forced as a human being to reconcile this, is to understand that I don't have to be the perfect Chinese person. I don't have to be the perfect American. I don't have to be the perfect Christian. I don't really care about their value systems. They don't seem very well thought out, if I'm being completely honest. I want to pursue what is good, what is true, what is lovely, what is noble, what is right. I think that there is another set of value system that the universe is calling me that is really different than what you hear about in the news. And I don't think I'm the only one, so I'm not like a super special person. I just can only describe my own experience. And part of that is like the sexual nature of just being a human being. I believe that God literally said, multiply and fill the earth. That means sex. I believe the Song of Songs talking about the breasts of your wife as a loving doe, forever happy about that. Like the sexual experience is definitely described and celebrated in the biblical record. Beauty is also seen as something so fantastic and amazing. And so when I read my Bible, I see something really different than what is preached in churches, what is talked about, what is actually talked about in social conversations. It's like we've got weird rules in our society. Like somehow it's okay to curse the name of God, but it's not okay to show cleavage at work. Like people say God -DAMN all the time, and people think it's funny. So they think it's funny to blaspheme, even using the name Jesus Christ as a curse word. Like that is somehow appropriate, but talking about Jesus Christ is inappropriate because it's violating religious freedoms. I think something really weird is, I've been to Stanford several times, and Stanford has all kinds of great speakers. Some are CEOs, some are startup founders, and people think it's cool to quote moral philosophers. You can quote Nietzsche, whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. You can quote Buddha, the Eightfold Path. You know, you're allowed to quote like basically everybody in our society, even Muhammad. Like Joe Biden quoted the Prophet Muhammad during his advertising campaign, political campaign, targeting the Muslim population. But quoting Jesus is somehow like a violation. It's some kind of like crime. Like it's a social crime. It's like a cultural crime. And you just ask yourself, who the hell is setting these rules? Like how come you can't talk about Jesus Christ, but you can curse his name? How come you've got to be so sensitive about people like Xi Jinping, but you're not? Like if someone else says, hi, I'm a Christian, can you please respect Jesus' name? There's no defense. It's not discrimination. It's not discrimination to curse Jesus Christ. Is that weird? I think there is a darker component to Instagram modeling and pornography. But at the end of the day, beauty to me should be celebrated as beauty. Our humans' ability to make choices, such as photography. Like this photo has photographic elements that deserve to be talked about, and I love to talk about it. I don't consider myself a photography expert, but I like photography. I like videography. I like cinematography. And I'd love to just explore and actually talk about some of the photos sometimes. Like, how come it's okay to, in a modeling context, to see this photo and be like, oh, how can we make this you look even better? Like, if I was a modeling agency, all of a sudden, it's okay to talk about photos. But when I'm talking from a different context, it's like, take it away. Like, somehow, boobies are like bombs or something. Like weapons of mass destruction. They're not weapons of mass destruction. Like, I'm actually interested too, for example, and I'm sure she is too. I'm interested in the idea of like, how do you make this photo better? Like, how do we, like, what edits do we need to make, or what pose would flatter her more, right? God gave every man, woman, and female a different body, a different frame, a different face. Like, how do you upgrade her look? Or what can we tell from this photo? Like, this is a target customer. Like, based off of her makeup, can we tell anything about her? Can we tell anything about her choice of style? Is it possible? Can a person identify where does this person even come from culturally? Like does this person come from Japan? Does this person have, there's Chinese? Are they from the United States of America? I would say with high probability this looks more to me like a Chinese American girl. Now, is she really Chinese American? There's a 1.2% of the population in America is Chinese American, or like less than 1%ish. And that's something I'm really interested in, is actually people. Like, actually the people, like even I haven't met many people, and I'm going to die having not met many people. I will have seen more people on a screen than I've actually met, and that's something that I think is something deeper, a deeper calling for me, is I want to hear more people's stories. I want to know more about what it means to be human. Like, I love her cape. Like, why did I choose this photo? I didn't choose this photo because it has anything to do with insurance or underwriters. In fact, I just chose a photo of people something I just saw that I liked. And I liked her cape. Her cape looks so cool. Like, why can't we all have cool capes like that, right? So, does beauty just mean you have one form? Absolutely not. I just feel like when we start categorizing beauty as it only comes in a single form, like even Homer crashing into a car, I call that's beautiful. Like, this is a great GIF. Barry Diller is one of the people who really inspired me to learn more about business. And Barry Diller was involved as the CEO of Paramount Studios, and they were involved in making The Simpsons. And The Simpsons is actually one of the most successful shows. I think it's actually the most number of seasons of all TV shows. And like Lady Misfortune from Runeterra, she's so beautiful. Like, I find this beautiful. I love game art. And I find that there's something about unashamed love that attracts me. Like, I like the idea of like this photo. Like, for example, this photo, I think she looks amazing. Like, I love her braids. Of course I love her body. Her name on Instagram's Essence. I just love, and I'm never gonna meet her. Like, I never met her, and I probably will never meet her. If I did meet her, it'd be cool, but I don't think I will meet her, because the probability of meeting one person is pretty small, which I think is actually one of the driving forces of Instagram's even marketability and value proposition, is that people actually are family. Like, Jesus called it right. Human beings are actually one family, and because we're one family, people biologically and instinctively have a desire to know, to be excited about, to share in the joys and to share in the sorrows of people they've never been met, because we don't need to meet each other to actually realize and experience each other's joy. Like, look, this is my, like, before someone might think, Chris, you're only into busty girls or something. I don't know if that's true. I have no idea, because I found that she has, like, to me, has the most beautiful smile I've seen. I know that a lot of people will not agree with me. They will think to themselves, no, something's wrong with her face, something's wrong with her eyes, or she's blah 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 blah. I don't care what other people think. All I know is that she has an amazing smile, and that when I see this photo, I have never met her. She responded to me on Instagram, so I guess we had a small interaction. But all I'm gonna say is that I actually feel happiness when I see this photo. I do feel happy when I see her teaching the dog. I can actually experience something visceral through the photo, and that's so cool. And I think it's not something that was always with me. I think that I've been able to experience more beauty, like see more beauty in things, and to actually enjoy other people's, like to feel other people's joy. I think it's deepened significantly ever since I tried following Jesus. Like, significantly, like a significant difference. And I think sometimes when we look at IPOs and we look at these processes, it can get kind of dry, and we can to me it's not dry anymore. To me it's like super exciting, but we forget that it's about people. Like a investor roadshow, for example, meetings, and it's about talking to people. Even when you're having an IPO, you're trying to sell to people. So if you really want to do well on an IPO, and even at a product level, you kind of actually want to really know what people are. You want to know, like, what is this person thinking? What is this person interested in? What's making her smile? What kind of products is she interested in buying? Why is she living the lifestyle she's living? What are her options? What can we do to make our brand more attractive to this person? What kind of things does she find beautiful? And what people find beautiful may or may not be somehow linked to how they look. Like, for example, I can tell that she finds dogs are cute. Like, for this photo, like, it's as simple as that. Like, you can tell that she finds some dogs to be cute. Not everyone finds dogs to be cute, right? So if you were targeting her with advertisement, dogs might be super effective. Now, for her, what if someone did a probability study on her own Instagram page and found out that orange was the most worn color in her photo, using photo recognition algorithms, basically figuring out, okay, orange is actually the best cover. Someone might be judgmental and say, wow, you need to cover up. You're not wearing enough stuff. Blah, 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 blah. But girls also like feeling sexy. I feel like when some people think that it's about, oh, you guys are objectifying women. You know, a lot of women like dressing sexily because it makes them feel confident, makes them feel like powerful, makes them feel good because they look good. She looks good to me. And the thing is, what if she's actually living in a place that's hot, right? Maybe she's wearing less because it's hot. Maybe there's a practical reason, right? There's a practical reason. Okay. And I mean, for this photo, for example, right? Because this photo is like, I love tattoo sleeves. To be really honest with you, I love sleeves. I actually like the whole gamer girl tattoo sleeve vibe thing. It's a thing. Like, it's even like a little subculture. It's really interesting, I think. I know she's a gamer. And the thing is, like, if God hated breasts, why on earth would he give some people, massive ones, right? Like, just ask yourself that. Right? What? Like, to me, when I think about God, I actually realized God must love balls. Like, literally love balls, spheres. How do I know that? Just look at the sky. There's like 100 billion trillion stars, and there's so many galaxies, and they all like forming into balls. He even gave men 2 testicles. It's almost like a joke. Like it's to me, I think God is a very funny guy. Like, I think that God has a good sense of humor. Like, so many people deny the existence of God, okay? Right? They deny. But at the same thing is, if there was a God, you have to agree that the circle, the ball might be his favorite shape because it's freaking everywhere. Like, it's like everywhere in the sky. Our planet's a ball. It's a sphere. And I want to get, like, a part of me is really interested in getting deeper into understanding this universe and this life as best as I can. No holds bars. Like, no holds bars. Like, with a special emphasis on whatever I find beautiful. Because this universe is so big. There's so many things. And it's so mind-blowing, right? And we're going to die soon. So soon we're not going to be on this planet. So might as well spend my limited time focusing on things that I find beautiful and trying to understand and piece together that side of the puzzle. Like, for example, it's very clear, like, just using facts. We live in a universe where some people are very, very blessed physically. We live in a world where sometimes some girls think dogs are cute, but we also live in a world where some people don't find dogs cute. Then we live in a world that has 100 billion trillion stars. Each and every single one we live in a world that has IPOs. These are all, like, to me, data points trying to figure out, wait, what are we really here for? Like, what is all this? I love her fashion sense. Like, oh, I mean, this is something that I won't lie. I can't really appreciate everything that I've come across. But I'm starting to like and appreciate, like, her fashion sense, like, mind blows me. I don't know why. Maybe I do know why. I like her clothes. I like her room. I like what she does. Like, what she does with what she has is like, woo! I don't even know what you call that. Like, what is this even called? It's like a sash, but not a sash? I don't know. Like I could look at this photo and just be like, wow. And it's almost like it's like 1 a.m. or whatever. It's 1 a.m. And I'm telling you that if we focus on what is beautiful to us, actually, we are regenerated. Like I actually feel like I'm in the morning now. Even though I was tired, I feel like it's morning time now. That in itself is a real reason, I think, to not be afraid and not be ashamed. I actually feel that my studying is massively enhanced. My research massively accelerated using the techniques. And the desire to dive back in massively increased. If I was to say, just look at the finances and just look at that, it wouldn't be as fun. It just straight up wouldn't be as fun. And if it's not as fun, you're not going to put as much time and effort. And if it's not as much time and effort, you're not going to get as far. I definitely want to go through the Bumble S1 form sometime, maybe this week. I would really like to go through this week. This has been on my bucket list. This is 220 pages. Right? It's like 220 pages. Lots of numbers, lots of words. But I'm confident that's going to be fun. So take care. God bless.